Shigeru Miyamoto, the man, the myth, the legend, probably the most important figure in all of video games. Today, we go over his retrospective. I'm very excited to do this. Miyamoto is an absolute legend, and I hope that my retrospective can do him justice. This is RJ from Game News USA, and without any further delay, let's get into this. Miyamoto was born November 16th, 1952, in the Japanese town of Sonobe in Kyoto. His parents were of modest means. His father taught English. From an early age, Miyamoto explored the natural areas around his home. He discovered a cave, and after days of hesitation, went inside. His expeditions into the Kyoto countryside inspired his later work, particularly The Legend of Zelda, a seminal video game. In the 1970s, Miyamoto graduated from Kanazawa Municipal College of Industrial Arts with a degree in industrial design. He had a love for manga and initially hoped to become a professional manga artist before considering a career in video games. Kind of like Akira Toriyama was a manga artist. He was influenced by manga's classic, I'm not going to say that name, I'll butcher it, narrative structure, as well as a Western genre television show. He was inspired to enter the video game industry by 1978 arcade hit Space Invaders. What a game that was, by the way. And then, now we're going to talk about his career. Nintendo was a relatively small Japanese company at the time that sold playing cards and other novelties, though it had started to branch out into toys and games in the late 1960s. Through a mutual friend, Miyamoto's father arranged an interview with Nintendo president Hiroshi Yamauchi. After showing some of his toy creations, he was hired in 1977 as an apprentice in the planning department. Miyamoto helped create the art for the coin-operated arcade game Sheriff. He first helped the company develop a game after the 1980 release of Radar Scope. The game achieved moderate success in Japan, but by 1981, Nintendo's efforts to break into the North American video game market had failed, leaving them with a large number of unsold units. And on the verge of financial collapse, Nintendo president decided to convert unsold Radar Scope games into a new arcade game. He asked Miyamoto with the conversion, about which Miyamoto has said self-depreciatingly that no one else was available to do the work. Nintendo's head engineer, Gunkai Yokoi, supervised the project. Miyamoto imagined many characters and plot concepts, but eventually settled on a love triangle between a gorilla, a carpenter, and a woman. He meant to mirror the rivalry between comic book characters Bluto and Popeye. For the woman Olive Oil, although Nintendo's original intentions to gain rights to Popeye failed, Bluto evolved into an ape, a form Miyamoto claimed was nothing too evil or repulsive. This ape would be the pet of the main character, a funny, long, hang loose kind of guy. Miyamoto also named Beauty and the Beast and the 1933 film King Kong has influences. Miyamoto had high hopes for the new project, but he lacked the technical skills to program it himself. Instead, he conceived of the game's concepts. It resulted in Donkey Kong. Alright, I'm not going to spend too much more time on that. That's what kicked off Miyamoto's career. When Nintendo released the NES, its first home video game console, Miyamoto made the two most popular titles in the console's history: Super Mario Bros. And The Legend of Zelda. Games that are still popular to this day, and franchises that have lasted 4 decades or so. In both games, Miyamoto decided to focus more on gameplay than high scores, unlike most games at the time. Super Mario Bros. Took a linear approach, with the player traversing the stage by running, jumping, and dodging, or defeating enemies. It was the culmination of Miyamoto's gameplay concepts and technical knowledge drawn from his experiences designing Donkey Kong. By contrast, Miyamoto employed non-linear gameplay in The Legend of Zelda, forcing the player to think their way through riddles and puzzles. The world was expansive and seemingly endless, offering an array of choice and depth never seen before in a video game. Miyamoto worked on many other projects for Nintendo Entertainment System, including Ice Climber, Kid Icarus. He also worked on sequels to both Super Mario Bros. And The Legend of Zelda. Soon after Mario Bros. 3 was developed by Nintendo, the game took more than 2 years to complete. The game offers numerous modifications on the original Super Mario Bros., ranging from costumes with different abilities to new enemies. Bowser's children were designed to be unique in appearance and personality. Miyamoto based the game on 7 of his programmers as a tribute to their work in the game. The Koopalings' names were later altered to mimic names of well-known Western musicians at Eastern and into English localization. In a first for the Mario series, the player navigates via 2 game screens, an overworld map and a level playfield. The overworld map displays overhead presentation of the current world and has several paths leading to the world's entrance to the castle. That was big. We love overworlds in video games, don't we, people? A merger between Nintendo's various internal research development teams led to the creation of Nintendo EAD, which Miyamoto eventually headed. Nintendo EAD had approximately 15 months to develop F-Zero, a launch game for the Super Nintendo system. Miyamoto also produced 2 major Mario games for the system. First, Super Mario World was a launch game. You all know that's my favorite. It features an overworld as in Super Mario Bros. 3 and introduces new character Yoshi, who appears in many other Nintendo games. The second Mario game for the system, Super Mario RPG, went in a somewhat different direction. Miyamoto led a team consisting of a partnership between Nintendo and Square. It nearly took a year to develop the graphics. The story takes place in a newly rendered Mushroom Kingdom based on the Super Mario Bros. Series. Miyamoto also created The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past for the Super Nintendo system, the 3rd entry in the series. Miyamoto made several games for the Nintendo 64, mostly from his previous franchises. His first game on the new system, and one of its launch games, Super Mario 64, for which he was the principal director. In developing the game, he began with a character design and camera system. Miyamoto and other designers were initially unsure of the direction the game should take, and spent months to select an appropriate camera view and layout. The original concept involved a fixed path, much like the 2D games, before the choice was made to settle on a free-roaming 3D design. He guided the design of the Nintendo 64 controller in tandem with that of Super Mario 64. Interesting, the game was developed with the controller in mind. The controller was developed with the game in mind. It's like the chicken or the egg thing here. Using what he learned about Nintendo 64 from developing Super Mario 64 and Star Fox 64, Miyamoto produced his next game, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. So this dude's just banging out hits after hits, honestly. Leading a team of several directors, the engine was based on that of Super Mario 64, but heavily modified. Ocarina of Time, of course, would go on to be one of the greatest games of all time. Miyamoto worked on a variety of Mario spin-offs for the 64, including Mario Kart 64 and Mario Party. My God, this guy's discography is amazing. Miyamoto produced various games for the GameCube, including the launch game Luigi's Mansion. He also produced helped with Metroid Prime, Pikmin 2, Super Mario 64 DS. Miyamoto helped on Wii Sports, Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. Of course, one of the most famous moments from that was when he appeared on stage at E3 2004 to announce the game. There were grown men crying when he walked out on stage that day. Trust me, I've seen it. Unlike the 2000s, in which he was involved in many projects, though, Miyamoto's activities in development were less pronounced in the 2010s, only producing Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon and Star Fox Zero. Otherwise, Miyamoto has credited as a general producer. He took a step back after that, for sure. Miyamoto has been called the Spielberg of video games and the father of modern video games. While the Daily Telegraph says he is regarded by many as possibly the most important game designer of all time, game trailers called him the most influential game creator in history. Miyamoto has significantly influenced various aspects of the medium. The Daily Telegraph credited him with creating some of the most innovative, groundbreaking, and successful works in the field. Many of Miyamoto's works have pioneered new video game concepts or refined existing ones. Miyamoto's games have received outstanding critical praise, some being considered the greatest of all time. Miyamoto's games have sold very well. Some of the best-selling games are on Nintendo's consoles all time. As of 1999, his games sold 250 million units and grossed $1 billion. And that was 25 years ago, people. Calling him one of the few video game masters, The New Yorker credited Miyamoto's role in creating the franchises that drove console sales, as well as designing the consoles themselves. They described Miyamoto as Nintendo's guiding spirit, attributed Nintendo's success to Miyamoto more than any other person. And people, that is the legacy of Shigeru Miyamoto. Thank you all for watching the video. If you enjoyed that, please hit the subscribe button and have a good day.